Now, Executive Suite with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi.
Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. Always glad to have you with us. Well, unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard about the not-so-hot rollout, not so warm, not so hot rollout of the Rhode Island tourism campaign last week. As everyone knows by now, Governor Raimondo, by the end of the week, was forced to drop the slogan, cooler and warmer, accept the resignation of her marketing chief and say they're going to make some changes moving forward. So to discuss that, I've put together a roundtable of experts who know the industry well and have some thoughts on what went wrong and what Rhode Island can do going forward to hopefully turn this thing into a success. Joining me is Amy Derjue. She is a Rhode Island native. She now works for the Boston firm Solomon McCown and Company. Next to her is Alex Beckett. He's the creative partner at the Providence firm Nail. And we have John Duffy. He's been on the show before, president of the venerable firm, I would call it, Duffy and Shanley. Now, off the top, two quick disclosures. Alec and John did bid unsuccessfully, maybe, which was good for you in the end to not have to deal with all this for the tourism campaign. And John has served as an informal advisor to Governor Raimondo, though that hasn't stopped him from criticizing this so far, so we'll see what he has to say. So, you've all had plenty to say about the tourism campaign, which is why I decided to have you on. I want to start with just a little post-mortem before we look forward. Amy, I'm going to start with you. Sure. You had an interesting post on Medium about what your thoughts were. So when you saw the logo, the sale, and you heard Cool and Warmer, what'd you think?
I think I saw the sale and I thought, yeah, okay, sales, oceans, Ocean State, all right. I think, like a lot of Rhode Islanders, I really got hung up on the ers and the warm. I think that's where I kind of got tripped up. I understood cool. Rhode Island is a cool place. There's a lot of cool things happening, and that's something that's not always represented when we're talking about ourselves. So I think that was something that was wise to put in there, but I think setting up as relative was kind of confusing to people. I wasn't clear, are we cooler than Boston? Are we cooler than New York? Are we warmer than people in Tennessee? Because I don't know if we necessarily are. So that was kind of where I got a little
I'm sure we're
tripped up.
not, but and I don't think the viewers will mind me saying that. Alex, same question to you. You saw it, you heard it before even the social media storm. What'd you think?
First of all, I was excited to see what we're going to do. As far as I understand, we were sad we didn't win it, but I'm a little bit wasn't sad not to win it because I understood the spotlight was going to be under, and I didn't know this was going to happen, but I knew some version of this would happen. No matter what you put out there was going to be haters. I thought the logo was fine. I thought the tagline was, it's one of those rules, nobody who is actually cool says they are cool. So as a strategy, it was interesting because I think there's some truth to that. I think Providence is a pretty hip little artsy city, but don't say it. You could be it in other ways. So the tagline was sort of a weak link for me. The video was nice. The video was fun. And then the Iceland thing came out, and it sort of
because the video was getting, as far as you can tell on social media, some positive buzz before
it got
people
derailed.
Until people looked closely and were like, "What's that?"
And at that point, it was the hate fest was on, and then it was let's nitpick the website and find every little thing we can go wrong with it. And I thought it sort of spiraled out of control. I didn't think it was the disaster that everybody put it out to be, because to me the bigger picture is we're doing it. Mm-hmm. We're committing a good amount of money to marketing the state, which I've been here for 15 years and we hadn't done it at this scale.
And we're going to talk about that. Before we pivot, I want to ask John the same thing, which is you saw the slogan, you saw the logo. What'd you think?
I think, and Alec knows this from our business, it's rare when you present a logo and a tagline alone. And
what do you mean by that?
Usually it's part of a larger campaign, and you see how it works, so people aren't asking the questions. I'm not sure how Cooler and Warmer works. You show it.
So it's ads or something?
It's ads. It's the video. The video doesn't mention Cooler and Warmer. So you launch it as part of a greater campaign, not in isolation. And when you just put something out there and go, what do you think? Right. You get opinions.
The truth is all the great logos and taglines that and we all know were attached to giant campaigns that really gave them their meaning.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that was the problem here. You put out a logo and a tagline. I don't know about you, never chosen a destination for a trip based on a logo or a tagline. I've never done that. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's what they did. And I think that's difficult.
Mm-hmm. So I'll stick with you, John, on this. So what did you make, especially as someone who supported the governor, who does want to see her do well, as you watched the week and how it went on? I mean, what do you make of sort of how I think Alex said it spiraled out of control?
Well, what happened was, so it started in the subjective, whether or not you liked a logo and whether or not you liked a tagline, to they failed on execution, which is objective. And to me, that's where it spiraled out of control. You can argue about whether or not you like a logo or a tagline. You can have intelligent conversations about whether or not you like a logo or a tagline. Once the execution started to fail, the problem with the video, the problem with the websites, that's it. Right, that changed the conversation, and that's where this thing got in a lot of trouble.
Amy, I'm curious. You're up in Boston day to day now. When we saw it make the front page of the Globe, that's why I said, boy, they have a real problem on their hands at this point. I mean, how did it look to you as the week went on?
I think there was some public relations issues too. They were kind of slow to respond to the criticism and say how things happened. Why are there typos on the website? Why? How are you going to get your money back? Is this going to happen? I think there weren't very quick answers, so people kept asking the questions, and the administration was a little slow to kind of get out in front of them. And I think, they're really correcting that now. The governor has said, we're getting some money back, we're going to look into this, we're going to see what happened, who approved what when, so we know not to make those mistakes again.
What do you think, Alec?
Well, it's funny. I've never met the governor. Which is kind of amazing in this little state. But it got nuts, and I think it fed into one of the things I've learned about Rhode Island is we love to hate. We really do. It could be a state sport. Sort of cynicism is built into what we do, and if there's the slightest whiff of something not going, especially from public officials, we pounce in a way that. I don't know. It's kind of alarming, frankly. As someone, I didn't grow up here. I'm from New Hampshire originally. Live free or die. Everything's going to be okay. There's a slogan, by the way. That one.
Live free or die. Yeah.
So I found it a little off-putting the way we just attacked, because this campaign's for all of us. I mean, this isn't if the campaign does well, our taxes go down. Those kind of things happen. So in theory, this is the kind of thing everybody should be, at least on the macro level, be on board with. So I'm hoping that we can steer this back after sort of a jolt off the tracks, that we end up back somewhere there.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little more about what you would be looking for in one of these types of campaigns if they were successful, and what maybe they need to do next to get things on track. Stick with us on Executive Suite.
How did it go?
I didn't want you to do it. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, and we are doing a post-mortem and a look forward on Rhode Island's botched tourism rollout and what the state needs to do. I'm joined by Amy Derjue. She's a Rhode Island native who works at the Boston PR firm Solomon McCown, Alec Beckett from Nail Communications in Providence, and John Duffy from Duffy and Shanley, also in Providence. Alec, you wrote an interesting thing on PBN late in the week when it was pretty much, you weren't hearing a positive, you weren't even hearing a neutral thing at that point about this whole shebang, and the headline was, "This is why we can't have nice things," which I assume was being told to all Rhode Islanders. And one of the things that was interesting you said in there, you did hear a lot of folks saying, I could do this better in 10 minutes. Look what I put together on Photoshop. And I did hear from some creative professionals in your worlds feeling a little hurt by that. Like, actually, we work real hard on these. But you said advertising is hard. We all think, well, we watch a lot of ads. Anybody can do it. Why is advertising hard from your view, and people might not understand that?
Advertising is hard because everybody hates it. And nobody is interested in it, and nobody wants it in their life. So to make a piece of communication that starts there and gets somebody interested in it and liking it is hard. It really is. It's closer to art than science in a lot of ways, which makes it subjective, which is why I didn't feel comfortable jumping all over, criticizing creative work, because all four of us are going to go home tonight and watch different things on TV and read different books. We have different tastes. You're never going to get unanimity on that. But I know for a fact is that it's not easy. That it is not, hey, let's have a casting call and get slogans thrown out. But there are layers and layers and layers of strategy that go into this that are ideally invisible to the end consumer. Ideally, what the end consumer, they see it, they like it, they feel good about it, they act. But what happens before that is you like a Nike commercial. I can show you the credits to a Nike commercial. There are 200 people who worked on that easily. So, and they all get paid, and they're all good, and they're all expensive. Advertising is not easy.
Amy, talk us through a little, I see you nodding your head, on, how a campaign gets developed. What are the kind of conversations, because at some point you have to make a decision too, right? I'm sure there's probably voices to the end of any discussion saying, I don't know, and someone has to decide, right?
Right, I agree. And I think some of the failure to launch here might have been it doesn't seem like it was entirely clear the state knew who it was talking to in this campaign. There wasn't any perception research since 2010, I think you reported. And, when the Q&A went out for the RFP, it wasn't entirely clear who they were talking to. Like, obviously, you want to be talking to people who are going to visit, but are you talking to families? Are you talking to conventioneers? How much of each audience? Where are those audiences? Are you going on social media? Are you going on print? Are you going on airline ads? There's all these different considerations.
And as John pointed out, we didn't even see any of that piece of it when they rolled out.
Right, so we haven't even seen that part, and maybe it really would have connected. So I think it's kind of figuring out the primary targets of your audience and then really kind of engaging them and thinking about ways that will resonate both with visitors and something that the people of Rhode Island are proud of and say, yeah, that reflects me. I see my state there. I see something I'm proud of. And yeah, people should come because they like those things.
When you've worked on these kind of campaigns, and you did the tourism thing for a while, where the budget was much lower, which is part of why people were enthusiastic about this change. But what are kind of the early conversations you have to have that leads to whatever the slogan, the ads, the everything else?
Well, the process is what they actually did. They had one of the top tourism research firms in the country, Longwoods, provide information on what's going on in the tourism marketplace. They had that. They used that to build their creative. My understanding from interviews
What's creative for the people who don't know the lingo?
The tagline and logo, for instance. They tested 10 of those against people who said they are interested in traveling this year in the Northeast. And what came out of that was a winner. They didn't sell that. Again, trying to make this objective a little bit, using the research to drive your creative product, and they did that. So that's the process. Just to touch on one more thing about Alec, which is really tough, what we do is really hard. We sell an idea. I mean, that's as intangible as you can get, selling an idea, but it's based on science. And then you create the art around it. So it's a difficult thing. It's why, what did people do with the Super Bowl? They watch the game and they watch the ads and they comment on the ads. So, our industry is about being judged.
So you have no doubt that this wasn't this wasn't messed up because it was a half-baked plan. They're like, oh, quick, get that Logan together. And they're like, cooler and warmer.
Right. No, they went through the proper quantitative steps to make a recommendation. Again, I go back to just putting that out alone is hard, and I would have liked to have seen them share some of that research where people go, oh, I get it. I get that these attributes tested really well. And we haven't seen that.
Right, because you can argue that it's nice if the people of Rhode Island like their tourism campaign, but it really doesn't matter.
Right.
If anybody in Rhode Island sees a tourism ad for Rhode Island,
it's a bad buy.
Somebody screwed up the media buy.
Or
Betsy Wall, the now gone chief marketing officer, told one of my colleagues that 30% of leisure dollars in Rhode Island are spent by Rhode Islanders, so she did think it should be partly directed at Rhode Islanders.
But that's one of the things I thought was a little amusing about this. Like, everybody felt like it was about them. It really isn't. It's about what's going to get somebody else to come here and spend some money or not.
I was shocked that the logo was expected to help Rhode Islanders' self-esteem. I mean, that's a heavy lift. That's a heavy lift. But one last point here is, so talking about just presenting a logo and a tagline, what do you think the reaction was for Virginia's for Lovers? People going, I don't get that, but they made it come to life. Or Oklahoma is okay. You're like, whoa, we're actually
That's true. I can only imagine if, without Virginia's for Lovers, if last week they'd announced Rhode Island is for Lovers.
Those campaigns were successful because they were supported by hundreds of millions of dollars over time. And this hasn't been supported by anything yet.
All right, we got to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what to look for going forward to see if they can salvage this campaign and maybe get it on a better track. Don't go away. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi, and we are talking about how Rhode Island moves forward after a not so hot first week of its new statewide tourism campaign. I'm joined by Amy Derjue from the Boston PR firm Solomon McCown and Company. She's also a Rhode Island native. Alec Beckett from the Providence firm Nail, and John Duffy from Duffy and Shanley. Amy, you worked in politics before you joined the firm you're currently at. Some people have joked, or said maybe half jokingly, hey, Rhode Island's at least getting a lot of attention. Maybe it's working in that respect. What do you think of that?
I think they can have a little fun with it. I know it's scary for state government and elected officials to have fun, but I think the governor is a little bit by saying, well, people are finding us when they look at Iceland now, kind of having that fun with it. I think, why not do a commercial now where you kind of get those Rhode Islanders, the negative people who've been talking about it, and say, like, why do you love Rhode Island? Like, how, the governor kicks it off, like, you've seen the headlines. Why do you love Rhode Island? Cuts to a few people talking about it. Even if it's just something that isn't a huge buy, but something that's kind of fun or used on social media, I think there's an opportunity there to really hammer home, we hear you, and let's start the conversation over again while they rebuild and figure out what happened here. John,
you were a big advocate all along for this. We got to remind people, I think we went from like $500,000 is the annual statewide tourism budget round to $5 million under this. Your firm has worked on that in the past, though you're not currently. Why? I did get people who said to me, why do we need to spend all this money on this anyway? We have good beaches and stuff. People come if they want to come. An ad's not going to convince them. What do you think?
Well, Massachusetts spent $16 million last year. And you can argue we have the same attributes. They have nice beaches, we have nice beaches. They have fun, cool towns, we have fun, cool towns. But if they're the only ones talking to you and they have all the share of voice, they're going to win. So it's really important, no matter what's happened with the launch of this, we're back in the game, and I think that's really important. It's our second largest industry. We should do everything we can to support it. And when Massachusetts spending $16 million, Connecticut spending $12 million, and we spent $300,000 last year, 1985 we spent $400,000. I mean, we're not in the game, and it's a critical industry for Rhode Island. That's why I've always been a big supporter of a statewide coordinated campaign.
So, Alec, what are you going to be watching now to see, I think we'd all agree it went off track at least somewhat last week, and certainly you can tell state officials are not, it's a little harder to focus after what they've just gone through on this. But to the extent people want to see this succeed, what are you going to be watching for to see if they're back on track?
I really hope they don't get gun shy. I really, it's hard to get noticed. And the truth is, $5 million sounds like a lot of money. But in the grand scheme of things, in the brands that are trying to get consumers' attention, it is a drop in the bucket. So I really hope they don't get conservative and they don't get gun shy and they don't sort of retreat from being aggressive and getting out there and not being afraid to say something, have an edge to what we're saying, get noticed, because we need to make that $5 million turn into $10 million, and that is not an easy thing to do, because we are still, even by multiplying tenfold, we're still being outspent by a lot.
And this isn't a per capita issue.
Right.
I mean, there's a woman in New York planning her family's vacation, and she doesn't say, well, per capita, Rhode Island's spending a lot against me right now. It's not that. She's getting inundated with messaging, and ours has to be in the game, on her radar, and resonating with her.
Amy, you're a lifelong Rhode Islander. You're born and raised here, and your mother's still.
My mom is still here.
She follows me on Twitter. Yeah, hi, Mrs. Derjue. So, when you think about because you had some ideas when you talked about Cool and Warm about what you think of when you think of Rhode Island. Right. What do you think? What would you be highlighting if they said, "All right, Amy, you're queen for a day. We're putting you in charge." What kinds of things do you think you'd go for?
I think you have to play on the ocean state idea. Maybe it's kind of hokey. I was thinking about it on the way down. An ocean state of mind, but it's a cool state of mind, and you can kind of play with the different states of mind of different stakeholders. And you can think about sports, you can think about food, you can think about all these different things when you come to Rhode Island. So I think maybe playing off of that, because I think Rhode Island is a really cool place, and I said that in my post. There's a lot of really awesome things happening here. It's a really different, funky vibe, and I think a lot of people, at least in Boston, where I am, think of Portland, Maine, and Portsmouth, New Hampshire when they're thinking, I want to go somewhere. I've got like a long weekend. Where can I go? And I think they don't think to go south. And I think
Really?
that,
So you think, because we think of our connection about, oh, we're the ones
Yeah.
close to Boston, but you're not sure that
I
is
don't
how
think it resonates as well. And I think, I think there's an opportunity there to kind of highlight the cool things. Like, you don't have to go to the beach. You can go to Providence and you can see a show, and then you can go to a club, and then you can go have a really nice dinner. And there are some things there that kind of haven't made it
busy
a wet
night.
up. I know. Hey, you got to fit a lot in when you've got a long weekend. So.
Yeah, exactly. John, what are you thinking in terms of what they need to do now to get this on track and also to build some public confidence?
Right. Well, execution is really important. And remember, the target audience we're trying to reach here is the people from out of state. They don't know that there's been this misstep. So when our spring campaign starts, which should be happening around now, they're just going to be receiving messages about Rhode Island. And I just hope that they're tracking it right, the message is right, smart media buys, and it works. We need it to.
For the people at home who maybe are trying to keep an open mind, even if they were concerned last week, how do you measure it? How do you decide? Because of course they're going to tell us it's working.
Well,
but
I think there's three key measurements. One is website traffic. I mean, if you're spending that much more money, we should see a lot of website traffic. Two is noise on social media. You can measure the conversation. We should be in the conversation.
I don't think we're going to beat last week's noise.
No, pretty good. But
Well, if you do it right, you will.
I'm hoping for more positive.
Yeah.
And then third, finally, the biggest one is hotel tax receipts should increase. And that's the one that you can't argue about. It's hard because, we're sold out in Newport in the summer, and Providence, we don't have enough hotels. But, with the Airbnb tax that's in place now, we should see a rise in those receipts. And that's unarguable.
what do you think, Alec? You optimistic, pessimistic? You feeling not actually too different now after last week as you did before?
It's interesting because one thing that we haven't even talked about here is part of this campaign, which makes it very ambitious. It's not just about tourists.
Right.
It's about getting businesses in here. And again, that could be a separate $5 million campaign in and of itself. But we're sort of rolling them in together. And as somebody, I grew up in New Hampshire, I lived in New York, I lived in Los Angeles, I lived in Boston. I chose Rhode Island. And I chose because a lot of people sort of feel like the grass is greener elsewhere. The grass is pretty darn green here. I've been on a lot of grass, and I chose to be here. And I feel like that's another part of the message that I hope comes out is the business development, because I have been personally won over by this state. And it can be done. And I would love to see that part of the campaign. I don't know what's happening on that front, but I hope that's down the road is the next phase of it.
All right, we only got about 30 seconds left. I'm going to put you all on the spot as we talk about tourism. One of your favorite, where do you tell people to go when they come to Rhode Island? What's a place you send people to, John, when people from out of state come?
I tell them to go to one of our great Providence restaurants and a show at Trinity, and that's a pretty good night out in
Aren't you
Rhode
on the
Island.
board at Trinity? You have to disclose. All right. Alec, what do you say?
I tell them if they want to go back to 1957, they go to Little Compton.
Really? I wish we had more time because I'd ask you more about that. Amy, what do you tell folks?
I send people to Beavertail Park in Jamestown. I think it's just a natural, beautiful resource, and you're just one bridge away from a great meal in Newport at the end of the day.
What do you tell people?
Yeah.
What do I tell people? I tell them watch Channel 12. All right. So just stay at home in your hotel and tune into the PRI. Thank you guys so much for being with me, and thank you for tuning into Executive Suite this week. And you can catch every episode online on WPRI.com or as a podcast on iTunes, and we'll see you back here again next weekend.